Okay, so we're going to talk about an interesting day that's coming up, known as the Day of Pentecost, which is actually this Sunday, June 8th, 2025. So, Annette, talk about this special day.
Um, I just thought it was interesting because a few months ago I was looking at the day of Pentecost and it never really occurred to me because it falls on the I think it's the 49th day after Easter Sunday. And it never occurred to me how wildly different like Easter is every year. Have you noticed or have you
Hmm,
have?
I
I
have,
never
yeah.
really noticed like how wildly different um the days that Easter falls on every year. Like it's and that affects Day of Pentecost. So um when I saw that it was falling on the 8th of June this year, which I only noticed last week, I was like, oh my goodness, that's so interesting because June 8 is an 8-9 day. It's about like a union between the 8 and the 9. So basically, like I'll take it way back because a lot of people won't know what we're talking about right now. So we'll just go right back to the beginning and we'll talk about the number 33. So it's a number that a lot of like red pillars often see and
Mm.
point out and look, the 33, 33.
Like
Um,
33-degree Mason.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
33-degree Freemason. Jesus died at 33. Da, 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 da. The number 33 actually hides the number 88
Mm.
because when you mirror the number 3, you get an 8. And why you mirror it is because I've got cats crawling all over my desk, is because you mirror it because the 8 actually represents um like the mirror of the soul.
Mm.
So, which is the spirit. So people usually conflate soul and spirit together and to think of them as the same, but in actual fact, they're not, but they do mirror each other. So there's this with the whole QAnon movement, there was this Q drop, and Q said, think mirror. And people have been trying to decode that for years. They're trying to work out what QAnon meant by think mirror, but this is it. This is what it's about. It's about the fact that the spirit, which is the subconscious, is really in control. And the spirit, like we're here to rescue the spirit.
Mm.
So the spirit actually, or the subconscious, controls our reality. But because we're unaware of it, we aren't doing what our higher self really wants us to be doing here
Yeah.
because it hides well, firstly, the subconscious is hidden. It's something that is something we can't see and we're not aware of. We're not consciously aware of how it's guiding us in life. On top of that, there's the unconscious as well, which is even more hidden than the subconscious, which is basically the subconscious, but it's the lower end of it. It's the lower frequency part of it, because the subconscious is a spectrum. So
Mm.
when you look at the moon, you're looking at the subconscious, like something that represents the subconscious. But because the moon is locked in a position and we don't see the dark side of the moon, we're not seeing the other side of the moon. And that's because the other side of the moon is actually the unconscious. So it's subconscious, unconscious.
Yeah.
And so the subconscious is hidden, the unconscious is even more hidden. The 8 represents the whole spectrum. So the number 8 can be
When you
good, can
say,
be bad.
so when you say the whole spectrum, it just represents what we're not aware of,
It
both
represents,
subconscious and unconscious.
yeah, so it's the spirit realm,
Mm.
it's which is the subconscious and the unconscious. The subconscious is, think of that as like the ocean just underneath the surface of the water.
Yeah.
The unconscious is like, I don't know, the bottom of the ocean, like the floor of the ocean.
The black part. There's no light.
Yeah. And then think of the boat, like if you're on a boat, think of the boat as the conscious
Yeah. Gotcha.
state. So the soul and the spirit.
Yeah.
You
And
got
it could could be it's dualistic. Is the eight dualistic
The
when
eight is dualistic, and
yeah.
the subconscious is dualistic. That's why you got angels and demons, right? They all exist in the spirit realm. So it's dual. The spirit realm is dualistic. You got angels and demons. You got good, bad, evil, blah blah blah. It's subconscious, unconscious. It's a spectrum. The soul is neutral. So this is why Adam and Eve, like he's the sun, she's the moon. He's the soul, she's the spirit. She's the one who guided him to eat the forbidden fruit. She was the one that guided him to do it. He could have said no, but he was guided by her to do it. So that's how it works. Our spirit guides our soul.
Mm,
Our subconscious and unconscious actually creates our reality. So if we want to change, and this is where the whole manifestation stuff comes in, if you want to change our reality, we have to transform our subconscious. So we have to go into our subconscious and find the things hidden in the unconscious and pure. We just need to purify what's in the unconscious so that it becomes it's no longer sitting at the floor of the ocean. It floats up to the top. Not to the top, but if you're in the boat and you've got a net and you want to like catch what's in your subconscious, you can throw the net over. If you apply effort, so you can grab what's there. But if what's in the unconscious is stuck, it's like it's at the bottom of the ocean. You got no chance of catching what's down there. And that's really what it's the most hidden thing. It's the big secret, that the fact that our unconscious, it really controls our lives in a way that if we understood how much control the unconscious actually had in our lives. I mean, if everyone could understand that, they would not be living the way they're living. Do you know what I mean? Like they would be making more effort to actually like become better people. I don't know how else to say it. They'd be making an effort, more of an effort to be a better person
mm,
because or to heal their traumas, to be more basically to live in a way like as if everyone's watching, like
mm,
all their thoughts, all their desires, all their actions, all their words, the things that they do behind closed doors, the things they think when they think no one knows what they're thinking, no one knows what they're, when you're on your phone and you have a thought and then suddenly you get an ad, like as if your phone read your thoughts and you get an advertisement for that thing you thought about that you didn't say, you didn't write, you didn't, well, that's the subconscious telling you like you're being watched.
yeah.
It's symbolism, right? Like everything can be seen,
Mm,
everything, all your thoughts. So imagine if everyone was aware of that.
yeah.
Like if everyone was aware of that, can you imagine how differently people would be living?
100%. Yeah.
And when you live in that kind of way, that's when you can free your spirit from the unconscious. You
Yeah.
can free it from being unconscious and um manifest a better a better life. It might not be better straight away, but at the end, when all is said and done, and at the end of the cycle, you're going to be glad for it because it's what we're doing here in this life is so serious.
Yeah.
Like it's we a lot of people get caught in this trap of thinking you only live once, just enjoy your life, have fun, just enjoy. They don't understand that you've got itchy to enjoy yourself.
Mm,
That's not what this is. This is not the real world. This is where we've got work to do.
mm,
And this is where we basically decide what our lives, like our existence is going to be like after this simulation is over or this cycle of the simulation is over.
mm.
So it's like a countdown and people can't see it coming
Yeah.
and it's just like la 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 and it's like no guys, this is serious.
And this is
Like
why the symbolism's getting stronger because we're getting towards the end because it's like Time's ticking.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
have no idea what's going on in the subconscious realm. So they don't realize that they actually like a lot of their energy, their sort of subconscious energy, their spiritual energy is actually being used up because they're walking around with all this baggage, but they just don't understand that that whole hidden reality is a real reality. So but if they knew it, they would, if they actually knew what they were carrying around on their shoulders every day and how much it was actually like draining their energy,
Mm.
draining their battery, like they'd do something about it, but they don't. And that's why, like, that's the whole thing about not being able to see the other side of the moon because it hides itself. The unconscious doesn't want to be, it doesn't want itself to be known. So,
Mm.
yeah. So, anyway, going back to number 33.
Big
So,
digression. Sorry.
sorry. So the number 33, yeah. So people in the esoteric circles and syncretism circles and stuff, it is kind of known as like on a more esoteric level, the 33 vertebrae. Some people call it Kundalini, raising it to rise up to go past the 33 vertebrae into the third eye and to activate, whatever,
Mm.
DNA or third eye chakra, whatever. And so, and it's true because all truths are half truths. But what it's missing and what it's hiding is the key to being able to do that. So people have different ideas about how you do that. But the hidden key is the 88. That's how you do it. So the 33 is the what, and the 88 is the how. And so what is 88? So it basically represents the opening of the heart chakra and the throat chakra. So, because your soul, remember there's soul and spirit. So, your soul resides in the solar plexus.
That's why it's called solar plexus. Mm.
Yeah. And so, but the spirit lives, it's in the heart.
Mm.
So, if your spirit, like the more unconscious it is, the more your heart chakra is closed. So your spirit, so people will call it, I will always call it the soul, like unlocking the soul from the lower energy centers, right? So like some people will call it the Christ seed, but I call it the soul. So it's like it's born in the solar plexus, like that's where it's been delivered. That's where it is. And then it needs to rise up. But how do you raise it? So people have all sorts of ideas on how to raise their consciousness, how to activate the third eye chakra, how to raise a kundalini, how to rise a Christ seed. Fasting, avoiding sex at certain times of the month, watching your astrology, the moon, and your all these things. Like it's funny because
Meditation. Yeah.
for years, meditation, for years, it never really truly sat right with me because I was like, so many of these things never sat right with me because
It's
it
still
did.
limited. It's like it's still at a certain time, like,
It's just a bit too left brain. It's a bit
yeah.
too like what like you see, like I'd be thinking, you mean salvation is dependent on how much free time you have to meditate and
Yeah.
um
And the
whether or
moon,
not,
when the moon is in your sun sign,
and
you
how do you know what
uh-huh.
if you don't even know your time of birth? Like there's a lot of people that don't know their time of birth. So it's like, am
Yeah.
I going to miss out on activating my third eye chakra because I don't know what time I was born? Like these thoughts went through my head for years. And at the end of the day, I always felt my intuition was like really enlightenment and salvation and all that kind of and immortality and all that, whatever you want to call it, has got to be dependent on how much of a good person you are. It has to be. And I thought if it's not, then I'm not interested in it. Like that's honestly what I used to think. So you've got the soul in the solar plexus, and like most people, their souls are locked down in the solar plexus and below in the
Mm.
lower energy centers for the most part, because um it's the more animal, carnal instincts. and we are transitional beings. So you've got people on the earth that are like total degenerates, people that really should be put away for life, you know, or some of them are like they're so bad. Like some people are so bad, you know, they just have they cannot read the moral code. And
Yeah.
then you've got really, really good people in the world. Like you've got like people that are like saints, people that are really beautiful, people that are really caring and compassionate. So we're all the same species, and yet you've got this massive like difference between most people are sort of in the middle where they're dualistic, where they're like, they're good when they're happy. They can be really spiteful and bad when they're triggered or when they're like offended or, you know, whatever, when they're betrayed or hurt. They swing from one to the other. So that's most people.
Yeah.
The key is like to not be that way. Like that's obviously better than being like someone that's just bad, like lost their humanity, obviously. But you want to go higher. You want to purify your spirit, which is the same as purifying your heart because your spirit lives in your heart, right? So if you purify your heart, then you're purifying your spirit. Now,
Yeah.
when you purify your spirit, the more you purify your spirit, the more open your heart chakra is, and the more your soul is able to travel up, getting closer to this, where your dormant DNA is. So, but it's that so this is big. So with the pyramids of Giza, the second biggest pyramid, it's Venus, it's the heart. But the smallest pyramid is Mars, and the Mars is the throat and it connects you to Jupiter, which is third eye. So without Mars is it's a lot smaller than Venus. It's not as important. So with September 11 in New York, you had the World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7 that went down.
Hmm.
So 1 was Jupiter, 2 was Venus, and 7 was Mars. So that was a lot smaller than, you know, that you had World Trade Center 1 had the spike that made it a little bit taller, just like the pyramids of Giza made it a little bit taller than 2. But 2 is pretty big. And then you had the little 7 that went down 8 hours, just around 8 hours later. So the it's still important. It's just not as important because it is the link.
Mm.
And so what is that? What is that like? What does it mean to activate your throat chakra? Well, obviously because the heart is so important, it's huge. Like so this comes first. Now, when as you purify this, as you activate this and purify this, you need to then activate this. Now, this is basically so the soul travels through the heart, collects what's there, and then acts upon it here. The throat chakra is the it in there's a hadith in Islam. It says that the tongue hides the throat. The tongue hides the heart. So it's like it mirrors what's in here. So this is the spirit realm. What happens in here is the spirit realm. This is like think of this as the soul realm. So the soul comes up, travels through the spirit realm, and now it's going to express what's in the spirit. It's going to reflect what's in the spirit. It's going to mirror what's in the spirit. So
Yeah.
that when you think of that's opening up the portal to the 8 here and then opening up the portal to the 8 here. So it's 8 and 8. And this is the key. So you have these films about like two keys, right, being needed to unlock something. Like the last two Mission Impossible films, you need two parts of the same key, like they come together,
Yeah.
right?
And Stranger Things season 3.
Yes, that's right. There were two keys that
Yeah.
turned on the big machine that opened the portal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they needed to be turned at the same time. I'm
To
glad you remember
close the
that one.
portal.
I
Yeah.
forgot that one.
Yeah.
In Atlas, um, the movie Atlas with Jennifer Lopez, there was her and the other guy that had the two pieces that the bad guy needed. I can't remember exactly that he removed it from the eye. Someone told me in Heroes there was two things. Anyway, there's this thing. So that's the two keys. It's the heart throat. So
Yeah.
when you think of that energy, when the unlocking of that energy, it's also the Lions Gate, right? So the Lions Gate 88. So that's 8, 8. It's the pillars of Hercules. That's the two pillars of Hercules. It's the end of the known world and the beginning of the unknown world. It's
When you
there's
say the known world is like the unknown world is a subconscious and the known world is the conscious. Is that what you mean by that?
well, there's something beyond the subconscious, which I'll
Ooh.
get to in a minute, because that's why the night that like the day of Pentecost falling on an 8, 9 day is so interesting, because the nine, we're going to talk about the nine, which is 9/11, right? But we'll talk about that. I'll get there. But so you got the gate.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Yeah, when if you want to know like an archetype that sort of describes what it looks like to be waiting at the gate or the portal, it's Robin Hood.
Ooh.
So Robin Hood is a virtuous outlaw,
Yes.
because we're basically like the chosen ones are under oppression on this planet. So this planet is basically ruled by people that are ruled by their unconscious. So the
Correct.
chosen ones, those who are like more conscious, more compassionate, more aware, closer to truth, closer to God, are basically um, under oppression in this world. We don't climb the ladders. We don't get to the top. We don't. That's not in the on the cards for us because it's like where we just don't fit. Like we don't belong up in those higher echelons of society, because we don't fit there. We get squeezed out because we it's just not it it's not a place that is friendly for us. We're not liked. Okay, they don't like us.
We don't belong there.
Because we live in a world where everything's inverted, and the truth,
Yeah.
truth is lies, lies is truth, foolishness is wisdom, wisdom is foolishness. It's everything's kind of inverted. So we're the bad guys here, right? We're
Yeah.
the crazy conspiracy theorists, we're the disease spreaders, we're the like
Grandma killers.
you know, we're the tinfoil
The
people,
false information, danger people.
dangerous disinfo people, etc. So where was I going with this? Okay, so Robin Hood
Yeah.
robs from the rich to give to the poor, right?
Yeah.
So he does bad things because he's an outlaw, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just by the way, I'm not encouraging people to break the law here. It's an archetype. Don't take
Yeah.
it too literally.
Yeah.
So he's like an outlaw. So he's going, so there's a bad king, you know, in charge. He will not conform. He will stay doing what's right. So he's about, helping the vulnerable in society by going out and getting what they need. Do you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like that's what it means to be at the 8, 8 at the portal. It means you're good, you're noble, you're virtuous, you're compassionate, you're empathetic, you love truth, right? You're a truth seeker. That's got to be reflected. You can't just it's not enough just, to hide that wisdom
Yeah.
and that love in your heart. You have to now express it. Now, this, even though it's smaller, right? So it's the smaller pyramid, it's the smaller building, but um it's the like the keystone in a way. It's like it's what connects
It's
the twin
essential.
flames,
It's
right? Think of
needed.
the twin towers as the twin flames. Like
Yeah.
this is, and then it's the connector. So um it's like what was I going to say? It's got to be done, but it takes courage. And so that's why the cowardly lion in the
Wizard of
in the
Oz.
Wizard of Oz, he's the throat chakra, because
Mm.
he's a throat chakra. And it's funny because the 8, 8 Lion's Gate, right? Because if it was just about the heart, it would be a cat's gate. It wouldn't be a lion's gate. But
Yeah.
you take the feline. So cats represent the subconscious, right?
Yeah.
So you take the feline, you add like you add courage and all that to it, and now you've got a lion. And
Yeah.
so that's the lion's gate. And it's interesting that he's a cowardly lion because he's a throat chakra. And so
Mhm.
anyway, so it's super important. This is really like this is the higher understanding of 88. But it doesn't mean that 88 is purely always represents when you see it, it doesn't mean it always represents something good because remember the unconscious hides behind the number 8. The
Yes.
unconscious doesn't want to be known, so it doesn't have its own number. It's
Mm.
part of the subconscious. It's part of that realm, the spirit realm. So it hides behind the number 8. So you will see 88 sometimes being used in negative ways. Like you'll see, you know, like a character become evil and then you'll see another 8 come in or,
Like
and then
Bob,
it's like,
Bob,
sorry?
like Bob from what was that movie we watched? The Marvel film. Bob. He's Bob is 88.
Yes. And then he also had this, what did they call it? The shadow or what did they call him?
Oh,
The void.
the Void. That's it. The Void. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's his dark side,
Yeah.
but then he's 8, he's also the good 88 because he's way more powerful than the others.
Yeah.
And so um yeah, it hides I sometimes I can't believe that we found it. Do you know what I mean? Like that we
Yeah.
worked it out because it hides itself so well.
Mm.
It's kind of crazy. So anyway, so now you know what the 88 is. I hope I did a good job at describing what it is.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, isn't it interesting that like it was so affirming or like it was so con
Validating?
validating for me to come across all this stuff and see it in symbolism so clearly because it's how I felt my whole entire life. Like I've
Mm.
always felt that a like a god or a creator that like would have created this reality to be that the key would be to be a good person and that would be the key to enlightenment, immortality, salvation, etc., etc., right?
Yeah.
Like it always felt I always felt like, well, if not how God created this reality to be, then I'm not interested in that God. That's how I always felt. Like if it depended on what religion I pick or
Mm.
how many hours a day I meditate. Like I've joined so many different groups in my life, religions and like spiritual groups, and I've read so many books, and it's everywhere you go, you see something that resonates, and then you also see something that puts you off. It's like, nah, this doesn't feel right. And
Yeah.
that's how it's designed to be because you're not supposed to lock yourself up into one belief system.
Or a
Like
paradigm.
it's a belief prison. If you do that, you're in a prison. You're not supposed to do that. If you do that, you get locked in a prison. And the only thing that's going to save you is being a good person. Like it's
Mm.
honestly the only thing that's going to save you because being a good person is going to help you. So it doesn't matter what, like, even if you are a religious person, right? And you're stuck in your religion and you're like, yeah, this is the truth and everything else is bullshit. Like even if you're there, but you're a good person, at some point you're going to start to listen to your heart when it says, you know what, that's not actually it. Like everyone has something valuable to bring to the table. Everyone like of every religion, of every mindset, of like from every
Yeah.
philosophy, everyone has something to contribute that is valuable. It's not just your people. It's not just your
Yeah.
religion.
Well, when more of the spirit comes in because of your pure heart, you really start to see the truth.
That's
And
that's the only way to see the truth.
yeah,
Like
you
if
can't
you're if
deny it.
if you're just up here and it's all about like you're not really living
No. And you're just
a very
reading a book and you're following a book, it's not the same.
so much easier to get trapped.
Yeah.
Um they call it luciferic because it's dualistic.
Yeah.
It's deceptive. It's so much easier. So anyway, so moving on. So we know what the 88 means. And
Mm.
this cat's sitting on my mouse, which I need to like use right now. Let me just scroll down because I wrote it down because I don't
Mm.
want to miss blah 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 blah. So you get the drift. The 88 is the gate, the portal that you need to access. Okay, so a lot of people think like when they meditate, right? They focus on the third eye. So people think they need to focus on their third eye because they don't understand the portal is not there. That's not where it is. That's where the energy ends. That's where the energy ends
Yeah.
there, right? The portal is is here. Okay.
Interesting.
This is okay. So remember, Melbourne is the heart of Australia, most lockdown city in the world during lockdown, right? Because the spirit is trapped in a place that you access through the heart. The 88 is the portal. It's the heart
Yeah.
and throat. This is the portal and that's it. This is not the portal. The energy comes in, the nine, right? It comes in through this portal
Yeah.
and it rises. It ends here. It ends at the third eye chakra, which is Jupiter.
Yeah. So the
So,
third eye activation is just like the gift that you get from doing the work, basically.
exactly.
Like
That's the
connecting the
gift.
heart to the
That's
throat. Yeah. But
so
people
you
are
need to
focusing on this without doing this. So they're not gonna get this because they're not doing this, Like, yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's crazy. So but it makes sense. It's crazy, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So then let's go. Da, 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 da. Okay, so think of it like this. We live in this is a 3D realm.
Hmm.
When you activate that, that's when you get to 5D. But this is the 4D. This is the bridge. So we're trapped, we're down here in the solar plexus, you know, mostly sending our soul down into the lower energy centers. When we send it up, there's something that happens that we unlock the 4D. At some
Mm.
point, we unlock the 4D. So we're living in a way that is um being at the 8-8, so being like Robin Hood is like reflecting God's energy into the 3D realm. It's being like a reflector of God's attributes. So that's empathy, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, understanding, loyalty, honesty, authenticity, da, 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 it goes on and on, right? The fruits of the spirit, the all these virtuous, positive, high frequency qualities.
Yeah.
And so that's how you get to 4D. And then the gift is 5D. 5D is like it's a lot harder to get from 3D to 4D than it is from 4D to 5D because the 5D happens, um, we get help with the 5D. We actually get divine assistance with the 5D. Well, I mean, we still have divine assistance to get to the 4D as well because the spirit is here and it wants to, we always have access to it. We always have access to it. We just have to open our hearts and we have to try to purify purify ourselves and then the spirit you know will assist. It's like it's the way it's all set up. It's obliged to. But then the nine, I always refer to it as the nine because it is a complete unknown energy. It's a conscious energy, but it's unknown because we don't know what it looks like. Like we haven't experienced it. We haven't even It's hard to even imagine what it's going to be like when the nine enters the realm. Like sometimes I think like my imagination is not even big enough to even really like imagine what because it's going to be like a recoding of the program. It's going to be like a recoding of the program. And like it's so big. that it's hard to talk about publicly because it sounds so crazy. So I just don't. I just leave it. I just say that I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But expect the unexpected. That's all I'm going to say. And we're coming up to that time in the cycle where the nine and the symbolism is screaming that, by the way, like I'll get to in a second, like what we're seeing. So we've realized a lot. And like like even since in the last 6 months, we've learned so much. We've been able to go back to the symbolism before leading up to November 8. And for those who don't know, November 8 was like there was a lot of symbolism, like a ton of symbolism, probably symbolism like on the level we'll never see again. That was foreshadowing an event on November 8 that it looked like an event that encapsulated like the whole east coast of Australia, or at least the three states, the three capital cities of on the east coast of Australia. So that's Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. That's where the symbolism was really strong. And that's why most of our followers are actually in those three cities because that's where the symbolism was the strongest, or that's where it was. We exposed it so much, like we went so public with the symbolism that we believe that we actually withdrew our subconscious. We didn't know at the time that the symbolism was coming out of the subconscious directly. We thought it was being consciously planted. So we didn't know this then, but we do know now that what we were actually communicating directly with the subconscious. So it was speaking to us and we were speaking back to it. So anyway, so that when you do that, you're able to withdraw subconscious consent. That and subconscious consent is non-action. It's when the subconscious is telling you what it's going to do, it's telling you, or the unconscious is telling you what it's going to do, and you do nothing about it. Like you don't protest, um you don't you don't respond. You basically like it's like being sent, I don't know, what's that terminology when you get sent like a letter from say like an insurance company, like someone else's, like you've damaged someone's car, for example, and then their insurance company will send you a letter, and then if you don't reply in 7 days,
Oh, like a tacit acquiescence, do you mean? Or
I think that's it. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like by you not responding,
Yeah, you're agreeing.
that's exactly right. Yeah. So by
Mm.
not responding, you're agreeing. So you
Yeah.
need to respond in order to not agree. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. That's symbolism for the subconscious consent. So one of the things we know now is that we didn't know then, two things. The number two is a hidden 11 because it's one and one. And the number three is a hidden eight because you mirror the three and you get an eight. So given like keeping that in mind, look at say the the Kursk submarine. It was a Russian submarine. Anyway, there were 118 people on it.
It
So
was
that's
12th of August, 2000.
that was the year 2000. Okay. So you've got August 12th, so this is an eight, and then 12, what's
Hmm.
that? Three. What's three? It's a hidden eight. So you've got an 8-8 date, and you had 118. So that 118 is a hidden 8-11. So you got on the 8-8 day, on an 8-8 date, you've got 118 people that died in a submarine. And then the submarine itself is symbolism. Russia represents Saturn. So then Jesus was, it's widely believed that the day he was crucified, I mean, it's mythology. I'm talking about it from a mythological standpoint,
Mm.
but it's believed that Jesus was crucified on April 3rd. Now, um, so April is, according to because they hide a lot in the Roman calendar.
Mm.
So all April is two, and then three is a hidden. So April is a hidden two, three is a hidden eight. That's an 8-11. So Jesus died essentially on a hidden 8-11 date.
Mm.
The Brooklyn Bridge, right? It happened on May 17. So March, April, May, Roman calendar, 3, 17, 7 plus 1 is 8. So that's a hidden 8-11. So it happened on a hidden, oh, sorry. Yeah, March, April, May is a 3. Yeah, so sorry, that's an eight. Sorry. Eight. 1 plus 7 is 8. So it's a hidden, it happened on a hidden 8-8 day. Now, Brooklyn Bridge is BB. And so BB is often 8-8. Um, and
Because
for those who,
B looks like an eight.
yeah, B looks like an 8. So it happens all the time. So if you look at like Bob, the film they made about Bob Dylan with Kate Blanchett and can't remember who else was in it. The big one, I'm Not There, it was called. So the very first scene, the clock in the middle of the frame actually says, is it 8? The 8 and 8, yeah, 8 past 8 or something like that, right? And
Yeah.
so, and then in part, not part two, but the second Bob Dylan movie they released last year or early this year was, you can see a very clear 8:11 on a clock, very clear 8:11.
Yeah.
So So the first one kind of reveal that BB is 8-8, and then the second one they bring out the 11. So it's really interesting. So Brooklyn Bridge is BB 8-8. It happened on a hidden 8-8 day, and it happened at 8:26 p.m., which is 6 plus 2 is 8, so it's 8-8 8-8 time. Anyway, blah blah blah. Like there's 1,000 examples of this. I'm just throwing some out there. Even like Snow White, for example, right? Like Snow White, the movie that they released, they made it so controversial. They made sure that it was very controversial and everyone that it flopped and everything. Well, that it was made, firstly, it was made 88 years after the original, right? The original animation. So it was
Wow.
88 years later, they
Mm.
made the live action version. And then what did they re what was like the probably the main thing that pissed people off was the fact they removed the prince. And what did they replace the prince with? A Robin Hood archetype. They
Mm.
replaced him with a Robin Hood archetype. What they did with that was the same thing they did with The Wizard of Oz and Wicked, where they took like the mysteries and they brought them closer to the surface so that you can understand the symbolism easier because we're getting to the end of the cycle. So it's the time of like truths and knowledge coming to surface and being revealed for those with eyes to see and ears to hear only, right? So they've replaced him with a Robin Hood because the prince was hiding this it was combining the sacred masculine with the divine masculine. But what Snow White did was it pulled out the sacred masculine, and it's like showing you this is the sacred masculine, and then the divine masculine is still hidden, but you see it at the end when, basically the witch, justice happens, right? Like she gets what's coming. And that isn't Snow White or anyone else physically doing anything. It's just something that happens because that's actually like the divine intervention that happens at the end of the age when the nine comes in and finishes the job. She started the job and then it got finished off by an unknown like entity. And that's
Mm.
exactly how the end of the age happens. We need to start the job, but essentially God comes in to finish the job that we started. If we don't start it, God doesn't finish it because we're not supposed to be living in this mentality of like someone's going to come and save me and I don't need to lift a finger. That's not the right mentality. All
Yeah.
right, so Um, and that's the difference also. So with the Star of David, when people see that on the internet, that's basically what's on the Israeli flag, right? The Star of David, the two triangles that come together to create the star. And so a lot of people will say, no, that's the Seal of Solomon, but they don't understand there is a difference between the Star of David and the Seal of Solomon. Solomon is actually in the Bible the son of David. And David wanted to build the temple, but didn't. He collected the materials to build the temple. His son built the temple. And that temple, the first temple, was mystical. It had God's presence in it. So the Star of David is the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. It's the 8-8, right?
Mm.
And what do the Jews, what do they call, like, sort of consider themselves to be?
The
The
chosen
chosen
one.
ones,
Yeah.
right? Because they're acting out symbolism. So the chosen ones are at the gate. The sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, the spirit, soul, the virtuous spirit, the virtuous soul, the soul that reflects the virtuous spirit. The Robin Hood, it's Robin Hood.
Yeah.
So that's the sacred union, and then you have the divine union. So in Christianity, they call the church, of course, it's symbolism, right? But they don't know it. They call the church the bride of Christ.
Mm.
So they see the church as the bride of Christ, and then the Christ comes in as the groom, right? To marry. So this actually, you could say, mythologically speaking, is this becomes the divine feminine, right? The heart and the throat together, and then the divine masculine comes in to complete it. And that, what I just said, is going to make a lot more sense when the nine is actually here, because then you're going to understand what the divine masculine looks like. It is divine. It is not just sacred. It is divine. We're talking about like power over matter, like power, like the ability to recode the program of a simulation, the ability to have power over matter, the ability to perform miracles, the ability to, I won't even say, there's just like, if you can imagine it, you can do it. It can be done. All
Mm.
right. So that's the difference between Star of David and Seal of Solomon. So, and remember, David collected the materials. I mean, Solomon collected materials too, but David was he knew he wasn't going to build a temple, so he collected materials for Solomon. David, Solomon,
Mm.
David, Solomon. So Solomon built the temple, right? With the materials that David collected. All right,
Wow.
so blah, 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 blah. Just going down. Okay, so let's get into the nine. So the number 89, so like we said before, the day of Pentecost falls on a hidden 8-9 day, because June is a 6, but you turn it upside down, you got a 9, and then it's June 8. So it's falling on June 8, an 8-9 date.
Yeah.
Now, um, when as soon as I realized this is when I went, that's it. We have to do a podcast, because this is a big deal, because firstly, we're heading towards the end of the cycle. So we're really close, because the symbolism is screaming that.
Yeah.
The day of Pentecost, I'll get into that before we could keep talking. So the day of Pentecost represents the activation of the third eye chakra in a nutshell. So it happened in the upper room. So a room that was upstairs. This is the upper room, right? So
Mm.
this is where it takes place. Okay, how it's depicted in art. Okay, just go into Pinterest and type up Day of Pentecost. What you're going to see is tons of images, like endless images, like pictures, paintings, whatever, of a dove. So the dove is the 8 of a
Sorry,
dove.
quickly, can you just explain what that is for people who aren't religious, the day of Pentecost? What is it? Religious?
Yeah, so it's in the New Testament of the Bible,
Yeah.
and it was after Jesus ascended, and
Yeah.
his disciples were in Jerusalem. So it took place in Jerusalem. And again, I don't actually think this is like historical, but I'm talking about it in a mythological sense. Took place in Jerusalem, and basically it was a like a baptism of fire, where um, they were able to, they were sort of endowed with this ability to speak in tongues,
Mm.
right? And so I'll talk about tongues in a minute. So if you look at all the if you just go and type in Day of Pentecost in Pinterest or whatever, you're going to see heaps of images of a dove,
Yeah.
like like pushing out fire, like bringing fire to people's heads, like the flame sits above people's heads. So now it gave them the ability to speak in tongues. So when you go to these Pentecostal churches, they do this thing, they speak in tongues.
Yeah.
Now they believe that speaking in tongues is like the language of the spirit, right? It's like I can't even actually like pretend to do it, because I couldn't even do it then when I was in the Pentecostal church because it felt so I have to put my mouse away in my drawer because the cat's sitting all over it. It's like it didn't it just never felt authentic to me. And now I know why. Um so it's like this like it sounds like nonsense, but they believe that it's a spirit language, right? But really what it really was it gave them the ability to speak in different languages.
Mm.
So imagine like you only speak one language and suddenly you can speak every language.
So it's like the activation of the nine where you know a lot.
Well, I mean, when you activate the dormant DNA, you are
Yeah.
now all knowing. Like it's like you've read every book that's ever been written. You've watched
Yeah.
every movie that's ever been made. You know everything. Like you've tapped into that.
You're like Lucy at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you know every language as well, right?
Mm.
And so anyway, I should mention that something interesting that I've mentioned before, so many of you following will already know this, but the Pope, not the last Pope that died at 88, right? But the one before, he actually was the first Pope to resign in like 600 years. Was it Pope Benedict? I think it was. He came to Australia in 2008, and the frock that he wore, or the outfit that he wore at the closing mass here in Sydney, where he did a speech on the Holy Spirit, and he mentioned the day of Pentecost in the speech, and in fact the theme of the whole event, which was World Youth Day, was actually the theme was you will have power when the Spirit comes upon you, when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. That was the theme
Wow.
of the event, and he died 15 years later, not as the Pope because he resigned, but he died 15 years later. And when they buried him in the outfit that he wore in Sydney. Like if you go and Google it, it even says like the Pope was buried in the outfit he wore in Sydney at the closing mass of World
Mm.
Youth Day in 2008. They kept that outfit aside and then buried him in it 15 years later.
Wow.
Like, how weird is that?
It is weird.
Because Sydney is Emerald City. Like, I mean, there are other places that represent Emerald City, but Sydney is the hidden aspect
Yeah.
of Emerald City. The fact that there's all this symbolism happening in Sydney, I mean, in Australia, is because Australia represented, that's why it's been the lucky country because
Mm.
it represented the hidden aspect. So everything was supposed to, Australia was supposed to become unhidden towards the end of the cycle, where everyone's looking at Australia because things are happening here.
Yeah.
Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world, and something was meant to happen last November, on November 8th,
Mm.
had we not removed our subconscious consent. And who knows, like the timeline we're on, I'm sure it's not a perfect timeline. So we can't just, we need to still be diligent and paying attention to what's happening and making sure we're still speaking out
Yeah.
and revealing the symbolism like because we just don't know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, now Pentecost, so when you think of the day of Pentecost, so Pentecost is essentially about the third eye chakra activation.
Yeah.
It's about those who are the chosen ones. Well, anyone can be a chosen one, right? It's up to you. You just got to be waiting at the gate.
It's not about
So,
DNA and genetics
yeah, exactly.
and
So,
bloodlines.
and so, the cats they just decide now during this podcast to misbehave more than ever. So the the so the nine, and what was I?
The day of
The
Pentecost.
those are the chosen ones
Yeah.
that are waiting at the gate. There comes a time when the gate opens up. Now, from what I understand about the gate opening up, it's more about when the gate opens, you go somewhere. It's not just about the nine coming in. You go somewhere. You actually go through the gate. and you come back transformed. So that's why the Pope died at 88, because it's like the death of the old self. When you are waiting at the gate and then like between here and activating this, what happens to you? What happens to you as who? What happens to Doris? Like, what happens when you activate you are no longer the person that people remember. In the movie Sonic the Hedgehog, I think it's part two, he becomes supersonic. So the emeralds, the seven emeralds, which is seven chakras, gather together at the heart because his heart chakra is activated. In that moment, his heart chakra is activated. The emeralds go into the heart. He transforms into supersonic. Now, his like adopted parents then tried to speak to him as they usually do, in as if he's the normal Sonic, the blue Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic! Bobby!
But then this little character says, "No, no, this is not the Sonic that you remember."
I'm sorry. He is no longer the Sonic you once knew.
What?
Like he's this enlightened being. Then he eats a hot dog, a sausage, right? A hot dog, a sausage in a bun. And we've talked about this before. We've even had people make fun of us for speaking out about the sausage and what it represents. But it basically represents the uncircumcised heart, which is symbolized as, because everything's symbolism, it's I won't go into why, but it's the difference between circumcision and not circumcising. But really it's about the heart. It's about the heart. When the heart is circumcised, it means that it's pure. It means that that portal to the unconscious is now cut off. It's a purified heart.
Mm.
So when he munches, he takes a bite out of that hot dog, he goes back to being the blue Sonic. But before that, and this little character says, he's not, no, 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 this is not the Sonic you remember. So it's like the old Sonic died, right? Like it didn't die, but that's what it's like. You could describe it as a death of the old
Yeah.
self, because now you are fully activated. You're not this transitional being anymore that's always got to be sacrificing the animal. That's what animal sacrifice represents, where you're sacrificing the animal desires of your lower energy centers. You don't need to do that anymore. The gate is shut. You're a unicorn now. It's the same reason why John the Baptist was decapitated. So he actually was decapitated because because now he lives on in Jesus. And because Jesus is this, or Jesus is this, right? So what he represents now lives on in Jesus. That's why he's the forerunner. That's why he heralds the Messiah. The Jews have their version of it. It's Elijah. So they're waiting for Elijah because they know that there's someone that heralds, that is a forerunner, that's a precursor to the Messiah, to the anointed one that comes in to bring peace, right? And to fix everything. And then in Islam it's the Mahdi. So basically now we have, when the third eye chakra becomes activated, that's like a marriage between the 8 and the 9.
Yeah.
The 9 is all of it. The 9 is really like the 9 represents everything. The 9 is it's not like, the 9 is basically God's highest, because you've got all these different energies. It's like we live in this realm of separation where everything's separated, feminine, masculine, all these different energies. You've got all these different energies that have been spread out and distributed to different animals and different creatures. And you've got Saturn, which is like the parent energy, right? So when you're a child, your parents are the same. Your parents are the same people. They don't transform into different people when you're older. The energy changes, that's all. You're not a child anymore. You don't need them to ground you and discipline you and hold your hand when you cross the road and kind of like keep things from you because like you're not supposed to know till a certain age or whatever.
Yeah.
Limitations and all that stuff. You don't need that anymore. Now you're an adult. Now your relationship with your parents is different. It's a different kind of relationship. So that's what the 9 is. It's just having a different relationship with the creator. That's all it is. It's not that there's all these different gods and
Yeah.
deities doing. It's not it. It's just different energies that you're getting from God. So the so when you think of the number 89, that's like the wedding, the divine union, the seal of Solomon, basically. So you remember that like there was a wedding, I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago, and it shocked, like literally one of the headlines is the wedding that shocked the world. And it was in Iraq, and it was this really fancy wedding reception, and it caught on fire, like the building. Do you remember this?
I don't.
And like, so the 107 guests died at that wedding. Look it up.
Interesting. What's
Um,
it
in,
called? You
well,
remember?
just look up Iraqi wedding fire. It'll come up because it was huge.
Yeah. September 26, 2023.
Right.
107 deaths and injuries to 82 others.
That's right. So you got 107 deaths. That's 17. That's eight. 82 injuries. That's 811.
Hmm.
Happened in 2003. That's an 811.
And September 26.
So that's an 8-9. 9-8, 89.
Yeah.
So and it happened in a place called Nineveh, which we'll talk about another time. But so that's a 9-8. So I knew that. Well, like when I realized what 9-8 was, I remembered that wedding, and I thought, I bet there's 9-8s in that wedding, because the fire is the like, so you got the wedding, you've got the wedding, that's like the sacred union, so that's the gate. Then the fire comes in through the gate to travel to the third eye. Now, for those of you who are new and you're like, oh my gosh, but you're talking about something really good, something really positive that's been like symbolized in a really horrible, traumatic, catastrophic event. I know, like it's so messed up. Like it's so messed up. It's the same thing with September 11. It's really positive symbolism, but I believe the reason why, well, one of the reasons why these really traumatic symbolic rituals, which are carried out by the unconscious, by the way, we need to get out of this red pill mentality that it's people and that we need to like bring them to justice. It's the unconscious. The unconscious is doing that because you know how people talk about demons, right? People being possessed by demons. People are demons. Like they're not possessed by demons. People are demons because you are spirit. We are all spirit. Like we're not this flesh and blood thing. Like we're not, this is not who we are. This is a simulation. So this is like going back to this thing of like degenerates and whatever. It's not that you have an evil spirit controlling you. You are the evil spirit that is controlling your soul, that's guiding your soul to do bad things. See what I mean? Like when you realize that, it takes you from this like victim consciousness to suddenly, oh my gosh, I need to work on myself. Like I need to make sure that there isn't like a part of my spirit that is demonic. But the subconscious and the unconscious is also not just in control of people. It controls weather. It controls animals. It controls technology. That's why your phone can read your mind. It's your subconscious that's controlling it. So it's speaking to you through your phone. But sometimes it's like literally like lightning that comes out of the sky and like hits someone, strikes someone. That wasn't a person that wasn't HARP. So that would be the unconscious that actually made that happen.
Mm.
Yeah, it's messed up. It is messed up because we are messed up because the collective subconscious is so bad. We don't have to fix the whole world, but we have to fix ourselves because by fixing ourselves, we're endowed with the power to help others because free will is always going to be a thing. That's the difference between Islam and Christianity and Judaism because Islam is about going from the low energy centers and coming up here. Their prophet was a man of love and war. He was heart and throat. He was a military leader. So it's all about looking at the prophet and as a blueprint, as a template. Like we want to be like our Prophet Muhammad, and they're working towards that. That's what it's about. That's why there's rules and obedience and all this stuff, and it's work, and it is works. And that's why the Christians don't like what they're doing, because they're like, oh, but it's, it's works. And it's like, yeah, because you do have to work. You do have to fight your lower, they call it the jihad, right? You're fighting your lower energy centers. It's a fight, it's a struggle against the animal in you. And so it's work. Then you get here. Now you're a Jew. Now, what are the Jews doing? They're making sure that they're waiting at the gate, symbolically speaking. It's about being at the gate and not slipping back down because you can slip back down. You can be here and then you can slip back down. So it's all about that's why they're the chosen ones. Let's be chosen. We're the ones that are going to herald. They believe they're the ones that are going to herald, bring in the Messiah, bring in the Messianic age. They're the ones that are going to do it. They're the big brother of society that's going to help the younger siblings. What do we have next? Christianity. That's the activation of the Christ self. So being a Christian is now, it's symbolic of going to the next level. The 9 coming in, that's why their Messiah has visited, and they're waiting for the return of their Messiah. Whereas the Jews, they're kind of like, they don't know who their Messiah is yet. The Christians reckon they know who it is, because that's what that represents. Now, speaking of that, right, the Pentecostal church is really interesting, because it's the word Pentecostal that's comes from the day of Pentecost. That's why the Pentecostal church is like so charismatic and speaking in tongues, and it's all this miraculous, like, spiritual gifts. It's about spiritual gifts. It's about like miracles and things like that. That's why you see like Benny Hinn, and you see them pushing people over. You see people go like talking in tongues, and they're doing all this like wild stuff, right? And that's why they're like, all you have to do is believe and repent, believe and repent, which is totally different to what the Muslims are doing, where they're like, no, you have to actually like really be obedient. You have to really obey, rules, laws, obey, and fight the jihad, which is fighting against the lower nature, the animal self. And so, and in the macrocosm, the jihad is fighting against the lawless ones. So they're like, it's about like bringing, like they call it Sharia law, like bringing Sharia law to play other places, like bringing it, like introducing in and becoming like being the moral police, because it represents fighting that lower nature so that you can be here, you can be a chosen one. And so, but they're like, it's more loose in the Christian church, right? It's more loose. It's more like, no, you only have to repent. Yeah, because that makes perfect sense, because the chosen ones are the ones that are going to bring in the Messianic age. And in that age, it is different. It's not that what Islam represents doesn't apply anymore. Not at all. It's just that the chosen ones are going to bring in the 9 energy, which is now changing the rules and saying you don't need to work as hard as the chosen ones did, because like it's pretty much impossible to at that point. It's like you missed the opportunity to activate your dormant DNA in this realm, but that doesn't mean you're doomed. Now you can still like become enlightened when you leave, but you don't have to do the work that the chosen one. You don't have to suffer like the chosen ones did. The chosen ones are that's why the Jews believe that the suffering servant, which is like I told you before, it's the forbidden verse. Mel Gibson put it at the beginning of his movie, The Passion of the Christ. Netflix removed it. The Christians had a big, like they were really upset that they had removed it.
Yeah.
And then they put it back in, because the Jews believe that the suffering servant is Israel, is the nation of Israel, which is the chosen ones. So they're not going to have to suffer as much as the chosen ones did. Um, and it's more about just being remorseful. But the problem is the Christians are applying that to where we are now. It doesn't apply to this part of the cycle. It applies to the next part of the cycle that's coming. And that's why so much of Christianity doesn't make sense. It's going to make sense later. It doesn't make sense now. Like the talking, speaking in tongues doesn't make sense. It sounds ridiculous. Go and look up speaking in tongues in Google and just see people in Pentecostal churches going blah, 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 blah. It's like, what? What am I looking at? You know? The miracles, the hands-on healing and stuff. I grew up in Christianity and then I became part of the charismatic Pentecostal stuff. And I had big health issues. I had feet, I needed surgeries, like major surgeries on my feet. I did all the hands-on healing stuff. I never got cured. I never got healed, but they're like going for it. Yeah, they fully believe in this miraculous healings. What they're doing is they're bringing symbolism. And I have to say that I don't even believe that all of it's bullshit either, because if it's symbolism, some of it has to be true.
Yeah.
So there must be some real things happening. So when someone says, I got prayed on and I got healed, I believe them. There has to be some real stories. This is the future. When we're in that time, no one's going to be confused because it's going to be impossible to deny the
Yeah.
power that's going to be here. It's going to be so big. Hillsong Church. Everyone knows Hillsong Church, Pentecostal Church. Why does everyone know it? Because there was a scandal. The founder, Frank Houston. Now, I've broken down the symbolism before about Brian and Bobby Houston that run the church, that used to run the church. And they're basically Brian in a nutshell. Bobby and Brian Houston, their initials are BH, which is 811. Bobby Houston is the spirit. She's the heart chakra. Brian Houston is the throat chakra, and Frank Houston is the third eye chakra. And so this whole like saga happened in, what is considered to be the most famous Pentecostal church in the world, and it originated in Australia. So it's an Australian, all the symbolism is there. It all went down legally and in the media after Frank Houston died, because Frank Houston represents something that's not supposed to exist. I could do a whole video on this and show you in the media all the numbers and the dates, and it's all there. Lately in the media, there's a lot of symbolism about cats and fire. So let's have a look. I went back and had a look. And now since January, so I remember in January, because I'm a cat lady. I've got like almost 40 cats here, right?
Yeah.
So I pay attention to this stuff because I'm a cat lady. So I really feel for these people. So there's a woman like me, on Long Island in New York. This was in January. She had 23 rescue cats. She woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of her cat screaming. I think she ended up losing all of them or most of them because her house was on fire.
Mm.
So her house went up in flames. She lost her cats, and that was so devastating. I remember thinking, like, feeling so bad for her. Now, a month later, or 2 months later, I think it was 2 months later, another cat, like a much larger cat sanctuary, also on the same island, which is a very densely populated island, called Happy Cat Sanctuary, went up in flames. Now, 100 cats died, and the owner, I think his name was Chris Arsenal, he passed away as well because he was trying to save as many of them as he could, so he died. And that was all over the media because that was like a lot of cats, and the owner died as well. So that was sad. And then, a month after that, in Western Sydney, a cat lady, I don't know if they were rescue cats or if she was a hoarder or a breeder or what, but she had a house full of cats. And that's how they said it in the news. They were like, they actually called it a house full of cats, went on fire, and 9 of them died. Then, in the past week, so a month later or something, another cat rescue called Happy Tails Cat Rescue in Florida burnt down. And according to the news, the latest, because this was just the other day, 14 cats died in that fire. Then a couple of days after that, another animal rescue in Pennsylvania called Paul's Abilities went up in flames, like caught fire, and 15 cats died. Now, like, I can't believe no one has done a story about all these stories. Or maybe they have, but I haven't found it. But a lot of people are commenting all over social media and saying, this can't be a coincidence. We're talking muggles. We're not talking like conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat going, what is going on? Like, this can't be a coincidence. Cats represent the eight, the subconscious, and that's kind of like widely known. It's a widely known thing. Cats are they're associated with the feminine,
Mm.
subconscious. The fire represents the nine. So you've got that's the eight, that's the 89. The combination of 8 and 9, cats and fire. There's nuclear stuff. Can't go too much detail because there's so much I need to learn about nuclear. I don't know anything about it. As far as I know, the three most well-known nuclear catastrophes were Chernobyl in the Ukraine, Hiroshima and Fukushima in Japan. Chernobyl happened in 86, which is a hidden 89. It happened on April 26, which is a hidden 8/11. Because on the Roman calendar, April is 2, and then 26 is 8. So that's at 8/11. Yeah, 86, that's at 89. By the way, a year later, exactly, the Los Angeles Times reported that they had raised $811 million for the victims. Hiroshima, the atomic bomb in that was in 1945. That was on August 6th. So August is 8, 6 is a upside down 9. So you got 89 again in a 9 year. Fukushima, I couldn't see the 8/9, but it was a very strong 8/11 because March on the normal calendar is 3, which is the hidden 8, and it happened on the 11th. So it's 11th of March. That's it. So it's an 8/11. Over the, I don't know, past year, we've seen a lot of symbolism about cookies. We've been trying to decode cookies, chocolate, and chicken. We've posted a lot about chocolate. We haven't posted a lot about chicken and cookie because we're not as close to realize, like we weren't as close to understanding it. Cookie, where there's a lot of symbolism leading up to November 8 with cookies in Australia, in Sydney in particular. In the Matrix, the cookie is massive. Like, to understand the cookie is to unlock a lot because Neo doesn't know that he doesn't think, he doubts that he's the one. And it's very obvious, like not just to me, but to like other decoders, that the cookie is the key because he doesn't think he's the one. She even makes him doubt that the Oracle, when he goes to visit her in the kitchen, she's baking cookies. She makes him doubt that he's the one as well. But then she gives him a cookie and says, when you're finished eating this, you'll be right as rain. And so people have been saying like that cookie makes him the one. And it's true. That cookie represents something that makes him the one. The chicken, I could go on and on about that. I'll have to post more details about that, but I won't go into it now because it's too much. So there's this guy called Jay Dreamers or something on YouTube, and a friend of mine has sent me this video of him talking about the cookie in the Matrix, and he's saying basically with these words like cookie, chocolate, and chicken, he actually uses these words. He says they have the guttural sounds, k, ch, right? Either or. I mean, in English, you've got C is a k sound and CH is ch, and then in Italian, it's the opposite, as you know. So either or. So k or ch, it's guttural sound. And these words have the guttural sounds twice: cookie, chocolate, chicken, right? And what he's saying is that it fits into all my decoding, even though it's totally different, and it fits. It's the 8/8. Cookie is 8/8. Chocolate is 8/8. Chicken is 8/8. That's why the Dubai chocolate. I mean, I could go on and on. Like you've got the chicken jockey in Minecraft, the Minecraft movie, and that was on the news because every time the chicken jockey showed up on the cinema screen, the kids would like, throw their popcorn in the air and make a big mess, and it was on the news. And even you and I went to watch it, and it wasn't like no one made a mess of the cinema, but everyone was like reacted to the chicken jockey scene. And then there was Lava Chicken. There was a song in there that Jack Black sings called Lava Chicken, and that apparently did really well on Spotify. And even way before this, you and I were thinking, what on earth does chicken represent? Or we couldn't figure that. Like it's big in symbolism. Chocolate. Okay, let's talk about chocolate. We've got the Dubai chocolate thing, the Dubai chocolate trend right now. Like it's massive. What's that? That's the green stuff, the pistachio, which is green. So you break open the chocolate, and what's inside the green? What's the green? The green is essentially the nine. Because when you look at the Northern Lights, you've got the green lights, right? So that's the rays of the black sun. And the rays are the night. That's why in like Wicked, the Wizard of Oz is all it's all green, but the Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, she's green. Like in Wizard of Oz, she's green. Because what she's the eight, but the eight is the vessel for the nine. So she carries the nine energy. And that's why, the Wizard of Oz says to Elphaba when she says you have no power, and he says, yeah, of course, that's why I need you. Because we can't access that power without her, without the eight. And so is the green is the nine, and that's why Ray Gunn supposedly retired on November 7th, as well as Ray Hudley retired on November 7th, on the same day, the day before November 8th last year. Ray Hadley and Ray Gunn were both reported to have retired from what they were doing, even though it wasn't fully correct. But that's what the media said because of symbolism. And so, because Emerald City, because Sydney's Emerald City, right? I could go on all day, like the amount of things that just fit together perfectly. Like this is syncretism on steroids, you know? I thought I knew what syncretism was. And now anyway. So now the hard horse sound, the k, the ch, it corresponds to the ancient glyph, the het. I can't remember how you say it, but it's the eighth letter of the alphabet in the Hebrew or Phoenician alphabet, and it looks like an eight I think it's in the Phoenician it looks like the eight. Then in the Hebrew it looks like something else, but in the Phoenician it looks like an eight. And H is the eighth letter of the English alphabet. So three more things. First, Flight 93. So 9/11, September 11 in 2001. You've got Flight 93. That was the United Airlines Flight 93. That was on its way to Washington. They say, allegedly, it was on its way to the capital. By the way, the capital represents Emerald City. It's another aspect of it. And guess who was there on that day? Well, who was in Washington on that day? A few blocks apparently from the capital. The Australian Prime Minister, John Howard, was there. So 93 is a hidden 9/8. Now there's 8/11s and 8s. I can't even like it left from gate 17. Like it just goes on, right? But the flight itself was 93, which is a hidden 9/8. So it's like it was on its way to Emerald City, but it didn't get there. It landed in a field. It crashed in a field. In my opinion, symbolically, what that is saying was that was the beginning of another ritual which was supposed to take place 23 years later. What's 23? A hidden 8/11. 23 years later was 2024 when 8/11 was meant to happen. When Sydney, which is a hidden aspect of Emerald City. So there's another 9/8. And isn't it interesting that the Australian Prime Minister was there? Anyway, so then I want to quickly say that these traumatic events, even though when we talk about them and they're traumatic and we're not talking about them as if they are traumatic, it's because we kind of already understand, like we understand why they're traumatic, so it doesn't confuse us. And that's why we don't talk about it like we're confused, because Why? Because the nine hides under it hides under trauma. Our trauma is in the way. Our trauma is like sitting on top of our enlightenment. Our enlightenment, our immortality is hiding under our trauma. And so that's why you've got places that represent the unconscious with the pyramids, like Egypt, like Mexico. What crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge? Three pyramids of people. Three pyramids of people crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. That's what that was. What have we got in Canberra? We've got a pyramid on top of the Parliament House. Canberra is represents the unconscious of, like, it's the state of Australia that represents Pluto, the unconscious. Egypt, Moses went to Egypt to free the Israelites. They were in bondage. They represent our spirits in bondage in the unconscious because of trauma. And you have to free them. What do you see in Egypt? You see pyramids. What do pyramids represent? Ascension. See what? Okay, Wizard of Oz. To get to Emerald City, what happens just before she gets there? She becomes unconscious in the field of poppies. She becomes unconscious. She comes back out of it. That represents the the trip to the unconscious to rescue the spirit, because you have to rescue your spirit to get to Emerald City. Emerald City is, you have to go through the state of Canberra, the state of the Australian Capital Territory, which Canberra is in. You have to go through the city of Canberra to get to the Parliament House. And you got to go through it. You get to Canberra. What's on top of the Parliament House? A big pyramid. One more thing I want to say is the day after the day of Pentecost this year, which is the 8-9 day. And remember, that's associated with fire, with wedding. So think wedding, think fire, think the combination of fire and something that represents the 8, nuclear as well. Think nuclear, fire. The day after that is the King's, well, it was in Australia, it was the Queen's birthday. It actually, see, the day of Pentecost falls on the Queen's birthday long weekend, which is now the King's birthday because the Queen's died and now it's King's. So the King's birthday is the 9th, which is the day after. And we're seeing a lot of king symbolism at the moment. I can't remember it all because I've been so busy, but I've had followers sending me stuff and I've been glancing at it, but not saving it and not like putting it in my notes or anything like that. So I can't but one thing I did see briefly this morning was Hungry Jacks, like a story on Hungry Jacks. And I was trying to think, like, what is Hungry Jacks? And then it took me a few hours. I was driving and I was like, hang on a minute, Hungry Jacks is Australia's Burger King. Because I was getting these messages from followers going like, look, there's all this stuff about king this, king that. Cash is king. Like, it was in a headline. And by the way, cash does represent, like, money represents the 9, right? And the 9 is the king. That's why Elvis Presley, the king, born on an 8/11 date. What was it? 8th of January. January is 11th month on the Roman calendar, even though the Roman calendar didn't have an 11 and 12. But if it did, it would be January. So there's an 8/11 there, and he was the king, born on 8/11 because the 9 comes through the 8. The 9/11, you can't get 9/11 without 8/11. Labor pains represent the pain that the world that we go through in the simulation before the arrival of the 9. And that's why, right, 911 is an emergency number, because it's when you're in emergency, you call that number. So it's the earth, it's like you're in a state of emergency and you're crying out for God, like, God, come and help us. Like, we need you. Like, things are so bad. Like, and that's why the Christians, and not just the Christians, but the Muslims as well, and probably the Jews too. I'm not sure about the Jews, but I know the Muslims, they don't want to be around for the end days, because the end days are that's the whole thing about, doomsday, and the end of days is like bad earthquakes, this, that, war, famine, pale horse, red horse, black horse. I could go on and on. I could talk about, like, the Exodus in the Old Testament, how Moses, how there were all these plagues. But it's essentially like that story is 2 timelines overlap together. And I really believe it's because we have the option, and this is what a lot of, like, exoteric religious people don't know, but we know it. We know that we do have control of what timeline takes place before the nine enters the realm. Like we can make the pains less severe. We actually have the power because when you can heal yourself, your own spirit, and purify your own spirit, your own subconscious, right? And purify your own unconscious and rescue your own spirit, it gives you a certain amount of like authority over the collective subconscious. We saw that last year. We saw that with November 8 because then you can call it out. You can see it in the collective. You see it in you and you see it in the collective. And you can call it out and you can expose it and it's shadow integration on the collective level.
Mm.
And it's really exciting to realize that. So if that's why I think it's important to call this stuff out. We don't need to have videos that go viral and all that stuff. But if we are expressing it, if we're getting it out there, it's like a way of checkmating. So
Yeah.
hopefully nothing happens this weekend. In fact, I really believe that we can have a normal weekend and nothing will happen. One more thing, sorry. There was a fire at a chocolate factory. What day is it today? So yesterday was actually a hidden 8-9 day as well, by the way, because
Yesterday?
yesterday was the 3rd of June.
Ah,
I
yeah.
said there's a hidden 8 and a hidden 9. And there was a fire, a chocolate factory in Sydney burnt down last night.
Mm.
Yeah. So anyway, and that's it. So I got it all out and yeah. So thanks for
That's okay. That's it's very informative, and there's a lot in what you spoke about in this tonight's chat that you do go a bit deeper in on the Spotify podcast. So if you want the gaps filled and you want to hear the deepest stuff that might be a bit too much for some people, yeah, you guys should get a join up on our Spotify channel and listen to those ones because yeah, they're the more advanced chats.
Oh, and one more thing.
Mm.
I for those I know most of our followers are actually in Australia, most of mine are on the East Coast. So I rescued a kitten today and I'll bring her out now. I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet, but this is the kitten.
She's
And
it's so
base
cute.
yeah, so the sibling died I don't know how, like yesterday or the day before.
Hmm.
So I don't know what happened, but I took it today, I trapped it, and I'm socializing it now. If there's anyone listening, if there's anyone watching that lives in Sydney, that maybe I don't know, Wollongong, Southern Highlands, so Southern Highlands, Wollongong, Sydney, that is interested in adopting a little kitten. He's about, or she's about 8 weeks old.
To be continued. Stay tuned
And
for
don't
more.
forget about the kitten.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Bye.
Bye.